Hi folks, it's Peter back with another video. I know this isn't another Richard McCook thread response, thankfully. This is a look at some of the albums I've bought over recent weeks, or that I've dug out of the vault behind me to give a listen to. However, I would like to start off with a bit of a response to a video by Alan the Static Traveller. About a week ago he did a video showing obscure and unusual records. I tried having a look to see and having a think to see if I got anything that I could show in response to that. I only came up with a couple of things, 2 or 3 items, so I might quickly show those before we start proper. And the first is this album called Of the Wolves. It comes in this oversized cardboard envelope, which is a pain to store anywhere. But if I get everything out that's in here and show you, this comes on. Now this, in Manchester, start again. In Manchester every year they have a festival called Fat Out Festival, which is sort of devoted to sort of experimental, avant-garde prog music. And back in 2012 I picked up this album from that festival, and this, believe it or not, was totally free, and it was produced by a group called, bear with me, I'll find, Baptists and Bootleggers. The album details come on a bit of cloth like this, a bit of cotton or something. Of the Wolves, and it's an album of sort of ambient electronic music, dark, quite dark in places. There's 6 tracks, 5 of them are of that sort. One track is a bit heavier and of the more in an RIO vein, but it's actually very good. It's an excellent album. But I'll read you what it says on here. Baptists and Bootleggers is a non-profit record label and publishers of art and literature. Everything we release is free and handmade. Don't know how they worked it. Of the Wolves is a collaborative project between the label and all the artists and musicians mentioned here. It is a soundtrack album with a difference. The bands or musicians have each soundtracked the same 8-minute 12-second video clip taken from a 1930s film of Dante's Inferno. The artists have created drawings or illustrations in response to quotes from the Divine Comedy, and the writers have created short stories using the album as a soundtrack for their fiction. So that's the details. You get artwork. That's one. Don't know if this is the right way up, whichever way you want to see it. And you then get, oops, another bit of artwork. You then get a short story. And you then also get a DVD with 4 more tracks on. Actually, this is really good music, ambient, electronic. You get artists like Borland, Vi, Daffyd Jones and Stagger. No, I've never heard of any of them. And Go Lebanon. Now Go Lebanon's the heavier of the tracks. Mind you, that's because there's 4 guitarists, a bassist, drummer, percussion, organ and sax. Now, their track on here is, like I say, it's more in the RIO vein and very good, but heavy. But on the DVD, the 4 tracks are all by them. And to be honest, they're awful. Well, to my ears, they're awful. They're heavy, just noise. But overall, this album is brilliant. How they could get away with doing it for free, I don't know. But I was really pleased to pick it up. At the festival, they also did a cassette featuring tracks by some of the artists that played at that year's festival, which I've got somewhere, but I can't find at the moment. And since then, I think all they've put out is a couple of CDRs. I don't think they lasted very long. But I thought that was fairly obscure and unusual. The other couple of other items were, one is this single, 7-inch single in the shape of a shamrock, which is by the Irish band Horslips. 2 tracks, Loneliness and Homesick, which I think, if I'm remembering rightly, are from the Man Who Built America album. This is on DJM, 1979. So that's, I think it's fairly unusual, shamrock shaped single. And finally, this Steve Hillage, Ley Lines to Glaston on one side and Glenn Phillips Lies on the second side. Now, this was given away free at Steve Hillage's Newcastle gig back in, I think, 77. So fairly unusual, a free single. Glenn Phillips was the support act, by the way. And the track that Ley Lines to Glaston didn't appear on his current album, Motivation Radio. Not sure it's been appeared on anything since then, probably. So that's a little bit unusual. There you go. So that's my mini response to Alan. So let's look at some of the stuff I've been buying and playing. First off, we have Under the Sid and Susie, aka Matthew Sweet and Susanna Hoffs, with Under the Covers Volume 1. This came out in, well, originally in 2006 was produced, but this is a 2020 reissue. Now, and it comes on this sort of grey vinyl. Now, Matthew Sweet's work I'm not really au fait with, though I have got a CD of The Thorns, the band that he did one album with, and I would love to get a vinyl copy of that. That's a great album. But this album with Susanna Hoffs of the Bangles is them doing covers of 60s songs and doing them really, really well. I think, was it Richard McCook that showed the best of? Because they did 3 volumes of this, one for the 60s, one for the 70s, which is I also got, and one for the 80s. And on the 60s one here, they do tracks like The Beatles and Your Bird Can Sing, It's All Over Now Baby Blue. They do a beautiful version of Who Knows Where the Time Goes, the Sandy Denny Fairport track. Neil Young's Cinnamon Girl, Love's Alone Again, or The Kids Are All Right by The Who, Sunday Morning by Velvets, Monday, Mamas and the Papas, I Can See for Miles by The Who, Village Green Preservation Society. And I must admit, I love these versions. Their vocals are superb. The playing's excellent. Well worth getting. I'm really pleased with that. And so I also bought at the same time Volume 2, which is devoted to the 70s. And on here they do The Dead Sugar Magnolia, Fleetwood Mac's Secondhand News, that's with Lindsey Buckingham on guitar as well. The Hooples' All the Young Dudes, Television's Marquee Moon, which is really good. Tom Petty's Here Comes My Girl. They do Yes's I've Seen All Good People, excellent version with Steve Howe playing on it. They do Willing by Little Feat. They do a couple of Todd Rundgren tracks. John Lennon's Give Me Some Truth, Rod Stewart's Maggie May, George Harrison's Beware of Darkness, Derek and the Dominoes' Bell Bottom Blues, You're So Vain by Carly Simon. They do I Want to Be Sedated by the Ramones. They do Buzzcocks Number, Bread Number, The Allmans. They do Killer Queen by Queen. Again, excellent. Like I say, they did a third volume of 80s songs, but I'm not sure I'll be bothering with that, as you know, I'm not a big fan of 80s music. So while there might be some decent stuff on there, oops, sorry, things have dropped. Apologies for that. I don't think I'll be bothering with the 80s one. Won't be my sort of thing. Next up, an album I had on CD back in the 90s, and I got the second album. This is the album K by Kula Shaker. Now I think this was released, I think, in 1996. This is a 20th anniversary reissue of it. Oops, sorry, you can't see. This is an excellent album, I must admit. They sort of appeared, I presume it was probably around the time of Britpop and all of that, which was never a genre that I particularly liked. But their mixture of 60s psych, Indian influences, Indian instruments, and 90s indie, I thought was excellent. And being a Deadhead, how could you not be interested in an album that has tracks like Grateful When You're Dead, Jerry Was Here. Now this is excellent. What I never realised is the album cover, which is obviously a sort of homage to the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper. All the people depicted here have names beginning with K. So you get Martin Luther King, Kaiser Bill, Rudyard Kipling. Who else have we got? Kennedy, King Kong, Ken Dodd, of all people. So I've always liked their artwork. But no, this is an excellent album, and I'm tempted to try and get hold of the second album, which I've got on CD, but I remember being very good as well. And I think more recently they've got back together and they did a K 2.0 album, which I've heard good things about. Oh, that's that one. Next up we have a band I'd never heard of, and well, I'm not surprised. This is Flux. This is British prog rock, and it's an album on the, you can see that, on a new label called Sealy Court, which is a label that seems to be devoted to putting out albums that were sort of private pressings or were never released at all. Now, Flux were a band that never actually released anything. This is a live recording of a gig they did. Who were they supporting? Was it Stray? Yeah, supporting Stray in 1973. Now I'll read you what it says about the band on here and the album. Flux is the product of 5 musicians playing exactly what they wanted. The result is a coruscating outpouring of intense art rock, twisted jazz elements, an astonishingly unhinged soloing lead guitar that never ever relents, as if played by a demonically possessed John McLaughlin, gate-crashing a King Crimson session. Violent, apocalyptic and genuinely progressive. Now, might be egging it a little bit, but it's actually excellent music. Unfortunately, the gig had to end early, as you can hear at the end of the side 2, because of an IRA bomb scare. And it's really a shame that they never got to go in the studio and produce something, because its music is really good and I think they could have done a really cracking album. Of the members, the only one that I think was famous initially was, well, I say famous, Dave Punchin on keyboards, who came from the band Babe Ruth, you might have heard of. But Richard Blanchard, the saxophonist and vocalist, he went on to play with the Italian prog rock band Flea on the Honey, sorry. And Jim Grimaldi, the guitarist, eventually replaced Russ Ballard in Argent. But I'll definitely be keeping an eye out on this Sealy Court label. I think there could be some interesting stuff unearthed. And if you like early 70s British prog, I would recommend this album. I think it's raw, but it has a lot of great elements to it. Next up, 2 albums that I bought thanks to Michael P. Dawson showing them on his latest video, and they're by the French band La Grande Spam, S-B-A-M. I haven't a clue what that stands for. This is their first one from 2019. Wassermonde. And this is their second from last year, Fervent, which is a double album. Now, these aren't for everybody. Michael described them, and I think this is such an apt description, as Magma meets Looney Tunes, and that is perfect. You've got the bass and the drums are pure Magma, pure Zool. You've then got obviously piano and percussion, vibraphone on top of that, and then you've got the female vocalists, and it's mad. It really is. It's totally mad, but it's brilliant. A lot of, as Michael said, a lot of people are at the weeder end of the prog fandom are saying that this album was the best of last year. I haven't yet listened to this one. I've listened to this, and this is superb. If you like something totally out there, if you're adventurous, try them out on YouTube. Some of their videos and the masks and outfits they wear are incredible. I think you'll get a good view of their madness. Right. Oh, the next one was a bit of a disappointment, I'm afraid, and that's Klaus Schulze's Next of Kin, a It's the music from an Australian horror movie. Next of Kin. The movie's supposed to be a good movie, but this was released, when was it? It's a 1982 film. And obviously I'm a massive fan of Klaus Schulze, but this, like I say, was disappointing. And I think the reason is that originally the director wanted Vangelis to do the soundtrack. He wasn't available. Schulze agreed to do it. Went over to Australia, met with them, was happy to do it. Went back and produced. When he was over in Australia, I'm getting out of order. They showed him the movie, and what the director did was take pieces of Klaus Schulze's music from past albums and just slot them in as guides in the movie so that Schulze could see what was happening and hear what the sort of thing they wanted. So Schulze went away, produced a soundtrack, sent it to them, and they weren't happy with it. So they decided to go with the guide music. And unfortunately, that's what you've got on here. So the tracks are short and cut off abruptly. They're taken from pieces that are meant to build and develop, but that never happens. To be honest, it might have worked on the film, I don't know, because I haven't seen the film, but on this album it doesn't really work. You know, the track's just getting started and then it's finished. I think the soundtrack that he produced was eventually appeared, I think, on his album Identity, which is actually a great album. So it's a shame, but I don't think this is an album I'll be playing that often. Because, like I say, it's a shame. Right, next two are two that will make Steve Carlson proud of me, and they're Fela Kuti and 277 albums. First one, Zombie, Fela Kuti and Africa 70, and the next one, No Agreement. Now, I've never really been into African music, and I did eventually get into Afro rock with Ossie Bisa and Asagai, bands like that. Eventually got into sort of Malian music, North African with Tinariwen. But a couple of years ago, I started listening online to some of Fela Kuti's tracks, and I really enjoyed them. I got all of his albums. There was 3 box sets, I think, of his albums. I managed to get 2. The other one wasn't available. But Knitting Factory have released virtually all of his albums, I think, on vinyl and at decent prices. I mean, these are great. I mean, they're a mixture of sort of rock, jazz, funk. The great thing about them is the groove. The grooves are so infectious. I mean, each album is like just 1 track per side, which is great because the groove just goes through it. And they're very political albums, which you can understand when you hear his backstory and what he went through, particularly at the time of this album, Zombie, when the Nigerian authorities burnt his compound and I think threw his mother through a window and all sorts of horrible things. So the lyrics are very political, but outside of that, the grooves are so infectious. These are excellent albums, and I'll probably be trying to get a few more. So, like I said, Steve will be proud of me. and he's probably shown these and spoken about them far more eloquently. But great albums. Next, a couple of albums I dug out of the vaults to listen to. One I hadn't listened to in a long time, and that's the Butts Band, self-titled album. I always like this cover and speaker. It's on Blue Thumb, and the Butts Band were Robbie Krieger and John Densmore of the Doors, with three English guys, the Jess Roden, who had quite a successful solo career after this as well, on vocals, Philip Chen on bass, and Roy Davies on keyboards. And I don't think I was that impressed with this when I first got it. I don't know why I kept it, but I'm glad I did. I really enjoyed it. This is, Jess Roden's got one of those great blue-eyed soul voices, and this is a mixture of blues, soul, funk, which is not usually my sort of thing, but I really enjoyed it. I thought this was cracking. Especially I think the track, was it Baja Bus, which is a Krieger track. I thought that was excellent. New Ways and Love Your Brother were great tracks. Finishes with a version of Kansas City, the old Leave a Stoller number, which I think is live on here, and probably doesn't quite fit the ambience of the rest of the album, but I found this really enjoyable. I think the playing was superb. That's what was so impressive about it. And like I say, Jess Roden's got a great voice. I think they did one more album after this, but I think by that point Jess Roden had left the band. And one of my favourite vocalists, Kevin Ayers, with an early compilation. I think this was released in, was it 76, something like that? Odd Ditties. Now, if you're not aware of Kevin Ayers, he came to prominence initially with the Soft Machine, was on their first album, then went on a solo career. And he's got a great voice, very distinctive, deep. I mean, what is it with the Canterbury scene? I don't know of another scene that's produced so many distinctive, unusual vocalists. You've got Kevin Ayers, you've got Robert Wyatt, you've got Richard Sinclair and Pye Hastings. All great vocalists, but you wouldn't mistake them for anybody else. But this is a compilation of basically singles from 73 through to 76 and one or two unreleased numbers. It's got the superb Lady Rachel, which I love. I think that's with great great bass by Mike Oldfield on that track, and great orchestration by David Bedford. And one of my favourite tracks by Kevin Ayers, Stranger in Blue Suede Shoes. Great, funny song. The rest of it's superb. You've got a track, Sing a Song in the Morning, which is him basically backed by Caravan. But a great artist. Did a load of great albums. Kevin Ayers. Alright. I then decided, I've been trying to pull out a few CDs that I haven't listened to in a while, and the next few were on a sort of a literature theme, and the writer Edgar Allan Poe. So what I first pulled out was this album by Peter Hamill, The Fall of the House of Usher. This came out in, I think, 1999. Now, it was originally recorded in 91, but I don't think Hamill was too pleased with the recording of it. So he redid it. But this is an opera with the music by Peter Hamill and the libretto by Chris Judge Smith, who was one of the founder members of Van der Graaf Generator back in the day. Now, if you know the story of the fall of the House of Usher, Peter Hamill plays Roderick Usher, and his vocals are just right for the tortured Roderick Usher, and he also plays the voices of the house. Andy Bell plays his friend Montresor. Lena Lovitch plays his sister Madeline Usher, and Herbert Grönemeyer plays the herbalist. Not an easy listen, but I love this. I thought this was very good. The music is all sort of like mass guitars that produce like an orchestral effect, but it's one you have to listen and read along with the libretto, I think, to get the most out of it. It's not background music by any means, but I was really impressed by this. Now, being a massive fan of Poe, I also tried pulling this one out, which is Lou Reed's The Raven. Now, this gets very mixed reviews. A lot of people love it, but probably even more, especially the critics, absolutely hated it. Now, this is the deluxe 2 CD set. They also did a 1 CD version of this. The difference being this features a lot of spoken word pieces by Poe, etc., as well as music by Reed. The 1 CD set concentrates on the music and I think loses, I would have thought, something from that. I've only listened to the first disc. I must have listened to the second disc when I got it way back, but I can't remember it. It's patchy. I think some of the spoken word pieces work far better than the music does. He has people like William Dafoe, I think, doing some of the spoken word pieces. It can be a bit over the top and seems more a sort of homage to the Roger Corman Poe movies rather than Poe himself at times. The music doesn't tend to go with it. I think if you'd made this an instrumental album with the spoken word pieces, I think it would have worked far better. He has other people sing some of his songs. Unfortunately, not always very well. I mean, there is a version of Perfect Day on here with Anthony from Anthony and the Johnsons singing. Oh, God, is that awful? I mean, sorry if you're an Anthony fan. I've never liked his vocals, but this is... Like I said, it works in places. So, having listened to that and been a bit disappointed, I found this. Unfortunately, I don't have a proper copy of it, and this is Closed on Account of Rabies, and this is a load of Poe stories read by famous people with sort of background sounds and music. So you have sort of Marianne Faithfull, you have The Raven read by Christopher Walken, you have others. I mean, Iggy Pop does a great read of The Telltale Heart. You have Ken Nordine, Diamanda Gallas, Jack Buckley, Dr. John, Marianne Faithfull, I said, Gabriel Byrne, and Abel Ferrara all reading stuff. And you have a couple of songs, one by Ed Sanders, which was the weakest part of it, and one by Deborah Harry. Unfortunately, this doesn't seem to be available anymore, but I would love to pick up a proper copy of it. If you like Poe, highly recommend it. I think that's it. Bloody hell, I've gone up to, oh, sorry, pardon my language, I've gone up to 35 minutes, far too long. Sorry about that. Anyway, hope to see you all again soon. Keep well. Bye.